Finally, we need to work closely with the states and local school districts to institute the measures that they deem most likely to secure our schools. A one-size-fits-all approach rarely works in our diverse and vibrant country. I firmly support President Trump's action to build a wall on the southern border. We need to increase the enforcement of our immigration laws across America. We also need to strengthen our visa system to ensure we let the entrepreneurs and leaders of tomorrow in, while we keep criminals and terrorists out. I have co-sponsored legislation that would increase funding to significantly strengthen our borders. Whatever compromise we reach on any immigration proposal, it must be in the best interest of Americans and our way of life.
I just wanted all of you to know that Jim Renacci is busy working in our government right now, and that's why he was unable to come here tonight. He's the one who thought that maybe a film would work. So we know this was second best, but we're happy that he went ahead and made it, and he even brought in a crew. He flew in a crew to do this film for us. So we're very grateful to him for that. Also, I'd like to mention that we asked all of the candidates to come here tonight, so that would include Mike DeWine, and there was no response to our invitation. So we want you to know that also. Since Jim was not able to come, Ann Becker will field the questions for him. She's been working closely with his campaign.
All right, how are we going to write these questions? You guys never told me.
Oh, one draft.
Well, I know one draft. And one of the reasons they picked me is because I won't let you go past one draft. I really won't. So
Raise your hand.
just raise your hand if you got a question. Tell me who it's for. Anybody?
Sir, I was waving to Ann if she's going to ask a question.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Pass the microphone.
Okay.
Will all these candidates be on the primary
Yes, you're all in the primary, correct?
in May?
Yes. All certified, all in the primary in May, yes.
I would like to know if Melissa and actually,
Can't hear you, Jerry. Sorry.
okay, I'd like to know if you feel that Sharia law or the Muslim influence within our community is a problem, and if there's a way that you can, how will you help to defend our Constitution against Sharia law?
I can take that question. I worked for Value City. You want me to use a mic or I'm pretty loud?
Good. Right. We got two.
In the private sector, in the private sector, I worked for a Jewish company by the name of Schottenstein Stores or Value City Stores Corporation. And part of their initiatives for their distribution and their manufacturing locations, it was a retail store. You guys remember Schottenstein's when it was booming. But do you remember when we had the first rash of Somali migrants come over during Mayor Mike Coleman's time in Columbus? I was responsible for those migration programs, getting people into, they were considered low skill level jobs, to where even if they couldn't speak English, we were able to create programs to where they could look at pictures, they could affix tags to merchandise and things like that. So in the real world, I know what good assimilation looks like, and I know what poor assimilation looks like. I know what cultural barriers can do to make it very difficult for people to effectively integrate into the community as well as into the workplace. And I already have established relationships with the Somali Community Association, and these are people who live here, they are business owners here, they are tax-paying citizens. They came over during the first administration, the first Bush administration. So one of the things that, his name is Hassan, he's the leader or the elder of that particular community. And he says, Melissa, we want to work with Republicans. We have never had a Republican even come in here and meet with us like you have. But what we want people to understand is we're not going anywhere. And that's what we have to understand in this room. It's not like everybody's just going to pack up and leave. So the folks that are here who are considered moderate Muslims, who would never insist on or think about having Sharia law here, those are the people that I personally want to build coalitions and relationships with, and I'm already starting to do that. You can see that on my website, that I've been doing those things. Sharia law is a radical law that if you are a true, if you are following the letter of the land in terms of the Muslim religion, it is supposed to supersede the Constitution or any government faction here in the United States. And I would absolutely vigorously fight against and make sure we have appropriate relationships with those communities, because it would clearly be an extreme threat to our democracy and to our sovereignty. So again, I know about these things in the real world. I've done this work before. Hopefully that answers your question.
I spent the time to read the Quran, the Hadiths, and the Surahs. It just so happens I was in the wedding of the former Western United States Director of the FBI and anti-terrorist division. And in fact, I spoke to him on the phone last night. I consider the Muslim religion not to be necessarily a religion. And if you take the time to study the religion, it's more like a way of life, including governmental authority. Their leaders,
I don't think they can hear you there.
their leaders, if you follow the strict interpretation of the Quran, and you know about ISIS, because they probably follow the Quran better than anybody, you will have their leaders control any kind of democratic government. And in most cases, democracy doesn't work. Most of the Muslims that are here, the moderate Muslims, are not fundamentalists. And I believe when Muslims come to this country, that the extreme vetting that Donald Trump wants to do is absolutely necessary. As I said, it's not a religion, it's a way of life. And if their way of life includes no respect for the Constitution, I don't think they should be permitted in the country. If you come to this country, you adopt our ways. We don't adopt theirs. You can kind of look at the problems in the world, and once Muslim population reaches about 10%, there's enough fundamentalists in that group to start moving for Sharia control. And we're not even close to that. And the problem, and what I believe is we can't let it get there unless it's all moderate Muslims. So I've spent a lot of time looking at the issues. I'm not sure how President Bush said this is a religion of peace, because that's not how the religion was formed. So I would be very vigilant. And right now we have the Muslim Brotherhood pretty much having their way in the State Department. And I can tell you, I would love to be on a committee that oversees how we're going to deal with these kinds of issues when I get to the Senate. I'm not doing this without a good bit of knowledge of the religion, and I feel that if you want to adopt American ways, you're welcome. If you don't come here.
Senate Bill 68 is to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Would you?
I support it 100%. They are a terrorist organization.
Right.
There's no question. That's right.
Years.
And they're very much involved in funding terrorism all over the world. And for some reason, we just turn the other way. And I think we can't let that happen.
Do you want to say anything, Ann, about that? Okay. No. All right.
All right.
So,
Okay. You next.
Neither one of you discussed the issue of marijuana legalization and also on the opioid addiction, and how you would respond to it.
sure.
Thank you. So for medicinal purposes, I would be comfortable for state level decision-making for the use of medicinal marijuana. There's an organization right in our backyard in Marysville, Ohio, working on some of those initiatives. And given the fact that I live with half of this side of my face is fake for pain management purposes, although I don't use any opioids, I certainly hope and pray that if there were something that I needed to manage pain-wise, that I would have alternative sources outside of synthetic heroin to manage my pain, which is what many of our opioids are. So I certainly think that it needs to be regulated at states' rights. I owned a home health care staffing company, so unfortunately, part of that included watching people go into hospice scenarios. So you literally saw people at the end of their life. And many times it was liquid morphine or it was different things used to treat their pain. And we had many families who said, I want the opportunity for my family to be able to at least be coherent, to have conversation with me before they leave. And if there's alternative sources that they could utilize to do that, many of them wanted marijuana to be able to medicate with. So I certainly think it needs to be a state level decision-making process. As far as the opioid addiction is concerned, I spend a lot of time at the community level with faith-based groups. I'm a youth group leader at my church. Still go to church, my Baptist church on the west side, and it's one of the hardest hit areas for the opioid epidemic. I truly believe that this is a community level issue that cannot be managed at the federal level. Every county that I go to, I hear the same thing from police, from firefighters, and from our faith-based leaders, our pastors. They have all said that one of the most successful components of recovery is a component of Christ-centered or faith-based recovery. Now, I know that's not popular to say in government, but what really breaks my heart is some of the most effective programs where people are living for long terms in recovery. The faith-based groups, they're fundraising on their own. They don't have access to the funds that they need. So I think we really need to look at this as a community problem, and I think we need to give the funding to the states so they can manage the crisis. That needs to be a huge component of this.
Interesting that you asked about this. One of the businesses that I couldn't liquidate when I was considering the Deputy Secretary of Commerce job was an addiction clinic. And I also currently own a home health care business, and it was kind of a spin-off. And the people there said, brought her in to manage it during Obamacare, which had a pretty negative effect on the financial situation. And she was a turnaround specialist. She said, I'll do this, but if I do this, you have to support me in a new type of addiction treatment. I've learned a lot about the opioid crisis. I've treated hundreds of people. And now we're using a completely new protocol. We've had a great deal of success, but I found out a few things about what's actually going on. First of all, the doctors, pharmaceutical companies that push this stuff, I believe are to blame. Not all doctors, but many of them were pill mills, and they handed these pills out. We are losing the war on drugs. In fact, we lost the war on drugs. We need some new solutions. Now, the protocol that we use in the organization that I started, was about 4 years ago, is we use a coenzyme. And what that does is it relieves everybody of their cravings as they go through this. We give them about 7 days on this coenzyme, and the cravings go away. What I've found is that when people are addicted to drugs, they will sell their children for another hit. They're not rational, they have a brain disease. Putting them in jail does not help. We need to find new solutions. I believe we found one, and I don't want to do a commercial for this. But what I've also found is the addiction industry really doesn't care very much about finding a treatment that works. Because they're making a ton of money off of people and not helping them. The average addiction clinic gets a 5 to 10% success rate. We're achieving 85% success rate with this coenzyme. In fact, if there's anybody in here that has a loved one that has a problem, I'll give you a card and we'll get you in there. We've done that with some people on the campaign where I've run into this before. But we are not going to change the trial of these addictive drugs by just telling people not to do it. We've got to take them at the youngest of ages. I always tell this story. When seatbelts came out, I never used it. I thought it was an ornament. And then my kids got in the car, my 2 daughters, they say, Dad, put your seatbelt on. They learned at school in 1st grade that you put your seatbelt on when you got in the car. If we can teach them to use a seatbelt, we can teach them that even the first use of marijuana could be the end of their lives. These people's lives are destroyed. I've met with many addicts that are recovered now, and they're very willing to go into schools and tell them what a disaster their lives have become. And I would like to get a program like that going. When I went to college, I was in a jock fraternity. We didn't use marijuana, but most of the rest of the school did. And you weren't risking your life smoking marijuana then. You are now. Fentanyl, carfentanil is spiked. These cigarettes are spiked with fentanyl and carfentanil. And one marijuana cigarette and you may have an opioid addiction. We've got to get the kids young. We can't put them in jail. We've got to treat a brain disease. And we've got to use innovation that is inexpensive, because what everybody likes is a long-time course of care, Vivitrol, those sorts of things, $1,000 a month. They put heroin addicts on Suboxone. Suboxone is just a prescription heroin. We're treating Suboxone addicts. They want off too. The people that don't succeed are the people that don't really want to get off. The people that want to succeed can do it.
You gotta wind it up, okay? And keep that mic up there because
I'm sorry.
when you speak again.
I wave my hands
Nobody in
around.
the back, I know.
Maybe I should issue out.
Okay, Jim, do you have